Once a month, when the moon reaches its highest point in the sky and the wild creatures call out to the night, he emerges from a private sanctuary in an undisclosed location outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. Arrayed in his priestly vestments, carrying forth the good news that comic books and graphic novels aren't just for kids, that they aren't just mass and spandex superheroes, that storytelling in a graphic format can be so much more. He is the Graphic Novel Apostle.
Hello and welcome back to the Graphic Novel Apostle podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ohrenberger, and I am so happy to be here with you, as always. And we are back for part 2 of our Human Target series that we are doing with my temporary co-host, Chad Tappe. Chad, what's up, man?
Man, so glad to be back. Thanks for having me for round 2. I know this is a different kind of thing that we're doing with these series episodes. I'm glad to be asked back. For anyone who is interested in following through with this great comic book, doing the chapters 3 and 4 tonight.
And I am ready to jump into it. Let me just give everybody a quick reminder. The credits are going to be the same throughout the entire series. The writer for this book is Tom King. The artist is Greg Smallwood. He also does the colors. The letters are done by Clayton Cowles, and this is published by DC on its black label. Hey, Chad, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the Human Target tonight, there's one other thing I want to give a shout out to a past guest of the podcast, Mal Desai. He was on an early episode where we talked about a book that he had written and done the lettering for called Jane Jett. Amal has been nominated and selected as one of the finalists in the lettering category at the Ringo Awards that are going to take place this coming weekend in Baltimore at the Baltimore Comic-Con. Now, that is this coming weekend as we are recording tonight. By the time this releases next Monday, Amal will have already won or been a good runner-up, but I just wanted to give him a shout out and wish him the best of luck. He's a good guy.
Now you're going on a trip recently, aren't you, Mark? Are you going to Baltimore sometime soon?
For listeners, this will be, in the past by the time this episode airs. But yes, as we record here on Monday night, the 13th, I am leaving tomorrow morning for Baltimore. I've got a work conference, and this couldn't have worked out better. The conference is going to be Tuesday afternoon through Thursday evening in the Inner Harbor in Baltimore, about a 0.4-mile walk from the Baltimore Convention Center where they're having the Baltimore Comic-Con.
Nice.
Which starts on Friday morning. So, yeah, I'm really excited about it. I am going to go to the convention on Friday and Saturday. And then I've got a great friend from law school who lives in Annapolis, Maryland, just 30 minutes or so down the road. And so I'm going to try and see him on Sunday with his family. Really looking forward to it. But the other reason that I am super stoked about going to Baltimore Comic-Con is because Tom King is one of the guests there. And I am going to be loading up an extra suitcase with books and comics that I want to get signed by a bunch of different people. But I'm really excited to get to meet him and shake his hand for putting out this awesome book.
I know we're limited on maybe how many listeners are listening to this, but you can just tell us, since it's just us girls, Mark, was this trip planned in conjunction with that awards thing, or was this completely convenient?
No, this was actually a crime of opportunity.
Nice.
I did not have this conference on my radar.
Hey, Mark, one last thing I wanted to do before we go into the thing, because and again, I'm a super fan of your podcast and what we kind of do and listen to so many of these episodes. And I don't know if you have different listeners who, they're mainly here for the comic book, or like me, maybe are here for the banter, right? The first 10, 15 minutes are like the favorite part of the podcast when you're getting to know some of the host things. But since I've been able to be on here a couple of times, and I know you've asked me several questions and things, I wondered if it would be okay, and not to usurp or overutilize my temporary co-hosting duties, but to flip the script a little bit on you and see if it would be okay if I were to ask you just a couple of questions before we delve into the world of Tom King and Greg Smallwood and the Human Target. I think our listeners would be appreciative of maybe just a little bit of core knowledge of the origin story of the graphic novel Apostle.
Well, let's do it, man. Now, I don't want you to get too full of your own shoes here, but
Yep.
yes, I absolutely welcome some opportunity to do
Fair. I
that.
will stay in my lane just for this temporary time that I have. These powers I will give back to you when at the right time.
Good. I didn't build up a cult here just to turn it over to someone else,
That's
Chad.
right. Fair enough. Okay, so I was thinking about the movie Unbreakable, right? The Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson. I think it's such a great movie, and in that, there's a couple of things that I was thinking about with that movie that have a lot of comic book, obviously, connections to it. Mr. Glass has this great comic book store, right? That he runs, and obviously, as the movie kind of goes on, it shows that he's had a history of kind of looking up the lore, the origins, and being a super fan of comic books. Do you have, like, can you paint us a picture? I know you're a big Silver Surfer fan. Was there like a time or a season or an age that you were where this was like that it really took off into the comic book things, or did you find this later in life?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, Chad. The super fandom that I enjoy now of comics and graphic novels, I mean, this intense love of the medium is something that really developed over the last maybe 4 years or so. But I have mentioned this just in passing on an earlier episode, but I didn't really get into it very much. I had this really intense period of comic book fandom when I was about the age that Garrett, my son, is now. He'll be turning 11 in about a week. And I was probably about 11 or 12. And I actually love to tell this story when I get the chance to. So in 1992, and I don't know if you remember this or not, Chad, but the X-Men cartoon that came on Fox, and
Sure.
it's often referred to these days as X-Men 92. It's gained some resurgence in popularity
With the
with
97 stuff.
Disney
Yeah.
Plus doing yeah, X-Men
Yeah.
97. That's right. So I had no prior exposure to the X-Men until that cartoon came on television. I'd never read comics and really got into that show. And a friend of mine named Kevin Prue and I got into going to the comic book store. And really, what we started with was we were interested in the comics around the X Men, but we got busy collecting Star Wars cards, like trading cards. And I didn't grow up I mean, I liked the movies like every other kid did, but I was not, some ride or die Star Wars guy. But we got into collecting those cards, and that was kind of fun and really got into collecting Marvel
Mm.
comics and especially X-Men books around that time. And I've actually been wanting for a long time to call out my parents for sort of wrecking my fandom during that period of time. And here's how. I had a newspaper route, and man, I pulled down a smooth $30 a week or
Yeah.
so from
Right.
that newspaper route, which, when you're 11 in the early 90s, that's pretty high living
Right.
right there. You can get all the warheads you can eat, like, whatever goofy kind of stuff we were spending our money on. But I started really going in on these comic books. And man, ever since I was a kid, I've been given to pretty bad FOMO.
Yeah.
And so I would learn about like a new series that was coming out, and it's going to be a new number one, and it's a limited series. And I felt like I really needed to dive in. And I will admit that maybe it got a little out there,
Okay.
a little fast. And so my parents decided that they needed to rein that in a bit. But see, here's the issue. I think they went overboard. They told me that I could spend $5 per month on comic books. Now, this hurt because, at the time with what the price of comics was, you could maybe get two books a month.
Okay.
Man, $5 a week I could have lived with. That would have just been 1/6 of my income. But I think almost out of spite, I was like, that's it, I'm done. If I can't do this the right way, collecting comics, spending every penny I have, I'm out. And in fact, among the X-Men, my favorite character has always been Gambit. And
Mm.
Gambit got his first ever miniseries where he was the featured character during that period of time. And I think it went like 4 issues. And I pulled out from the closet. My parents had brought down a couple of years ago when they cleaned out their attic. They had all my comics from when I was a kid. And so I pulled out this box that I'd been storing in my closet of comics from my childhood. And I had like the first 3 issues of the Gambit comic and not the fourth. And I think that must have just been when I went cold
That's when
turkey on
that's when the budget went in, huh? Wow.
it. That's it. Yeah, and I showed them. But no, after that it was not really until, not just adulthood, but like in my 40s before I picked it up again.
Yeah. Man, that's really awesome. And we share that, right? That's Saturday morning. I don't not even a comic book big fan, but X-Men fan, huge. And Saturday mornings, that cartoon, I remember my little brother and I, we would get up and like watch those. And because you wanted to watch them somewhat linearly, you had to kind of follow along each Saturday, right? To kind of back in the
Yeah.
day where you had to make sure you were up on it, otherwise you missed stuff, right? And you were out of the storyline. There was no way to retrieve
Yeah,
those
that's
those back, right? See it again. Yeah.
no, absolutely not. It was a different world we were living in, man. And, whatever people think of that when going in back and revisiting it now, man, that was the height of entertainment in the early 90s, was that cartoon series.
In the vein of Mr. Glass, do you have a prize possession? And is there one that like you like to show people when they come to the lair? Is there is there something that you're like,
To the private
yeah, I
sanctuary.
mean,
Yeah.
even if it has sentimental value or monetary value or whatever the kind of thing is there one that you especially like?
Yeah, that's funny. Not any of them from when I was a kid. And those books that I kept and made my parents keep in their attic for decades, after the fact. And fine, maybe I took it out on them in floor space in their attic a little bit, all those years hanging on to it. But those comics are, I think you can get about face value for most of them, maybe less. It's not like any of them really made any. They weren't they weren't
Right.
investments. I guess I should say it that way. But no, when I got into it in my 40s, I really got into the Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips crime comics. And of course, Criminal being what they're best known for. But they've also got a couple of other different series that I have just adored. One of them being like an LA noir series called The Fade Out that we're going to be doing in a couple of months here on the podcast. I've got a guest that I'm getting queued up for doing that, and I'm pretty excited because that is a really awesome
Cool.
book. So I've got a couple of single issues of from The Fade Out and from Criminal that I'm kind of most proud of and really enjoy to display. Hey, thanks for letting me talk about that.
Yeah.
That's fun to get to chat
Well,
about.
we've got a couple more of these episodes, and maybe we'll use a couple of those times just to fill in a little bit of the backstory of the graphic novel Apostle. Thanks for humoring me with a question from the people.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, so one other thing that I wanted to follow up on from the last time we had our podcast, you recommended the movie Motherless Brooklyn
Yeah,
with Edward Norton. I watched that this past
what
weekend.
you think,
Dude, it was great.
man?
It was such a good movie.
So
Oh
and
man, great
and
recommendation.
Edward obviously starring in that and directing, I believe, right? I think he directed that movie as well.
Yes, that's
I mean,
correct.
that Alec Baldwin gives a great performance in that movie, and all of the production of that movie is just really exactly what you want in a kind of a noir type of film. So didn't get enough press, but it was really good.
It was so well done. I'll say this though, the editing was not great. There was more than one scene where, it was like a guy puts his hand on the car window and he's got his gloved hand there. And the scene shifts for just a second. And, there was no movement. You didn't see the guy move pulling his hand away. It was one of those like what continuity,
Yeah,
things. That happened a couple of times in the course of the movie. I was pretty surprised about.
you watch it with a keener eye than that gets those slips.
I
But
don't
it's
know. It was late at night. Maybe I was just wired. Hey, did you ever see the movie Primal Fear
yes,
that
of
Edward Norton did
course.
with Richard
Yep.
Gere? So, the way he played
Yeah.
that character, Aaron Stanfield, I think, right? That was, stuttering and had some delays for this character that Edward Norton plays in Motherless Brooklyn, where he has Tourette's
Yeah.
syndrome.
Yeah.
I mean, it harkened back to that, and he did it so well 25 years ago in Primal Fear, and did it so well as well in Motherless Brooklyn, where that disability that his character had to contend with was not just played off for laughs, although he made light of it with other people when he was trying to break the ice and that kind of thing. but they worked it into the plot where he had to sort of, he's a private eye. He's trying to go unnoticed, and he has a disability that makes him very
That's right.
noticeable. That was cool.
Yeah, very different. A huge twist on kind of the detective not being as smooth and suave, right? He's having a noticeable thing that makes him stand
Yes.
out, and yeah, a really genius move by Edward Norton. In both of those movies, he plays a really great part, and it does have some similarities there because as you look at those two characters, at least how he played them, how he would have had to prepare for the research he would have had to done as an actor to kind of pull that off.
Yeah, 100%. When we were talking about different noir films and books and that kind of thing last time we were on, it hit me this week that I had not talked about the movie that is my favorite movie of all, which is Miller's Crossing, that Coen Brothers movie. Have you ever seen that?
I've never seen that movie.
Oh my
And
gosh, Chad.
isn't it an embarrassing thing whenever someone says this is my favorite movie of all time, and then you haven't? I don't. That doesn't happen to me very often. When someone would go big on a genre like that, you just made a huge pull on, on favorite movie of all time, and I was here waiting with bated breath, knowing that I will have definitely have something to say about that, and you pulled one out. I've never seen that movie,
Oh
Miller's
man.
Crossing.
And Chad, one of your great strengths is your yes
Yeah,
and which is what makes you such a
I
good conversationalist.
I can't pull that off on this one. I've got nothing. I've got nothing to
Oh
give
my
you. I don't
goodness.
know what it's about. I don't know anything about it.
Oh, Chad. You know what? I actually found that I have a DVD copy of it the other evening. I was looking for a different movie. I'm going to bring this to you
Bring
because you need to
that.
see it.
I'm ready.
It is a Coen Brothers movie, stars Gabriel Byrne. It's got
Mm.
John Turturro in it. Oh, Albert Finney plays this political boss that is just, I mean, he plays like a bad dude in this movie. It is so good, but it's based on the Dashiell Hammett novel, The Glass Key, which is one of the like, really early. It's funny, it's not crime noir, but it's political noir that is just it's a wonderful, wonderful
You
novel.
know, there is something smacking of that. Gabriel Byrne, he plays like an Irish kind of
Yes.
man. I can see Albert Finney saying "Miller," just like the way he does. Maybe I think maybe there is something that I've seen it in. I don't know, somewhere in syndication, just like well, on a TNT somewhere back in the head. But I wanted to give it I need to give it a second look for sure.
Well, you do, and there's going to be something in issue 3 of The Human Target that I kind of want to call back to Miller's Crossing and to The Glass Key with. It's one of those noir tropes that I want us to talk about. But before we go on, yeah, so Albert Finney plays the Irish political boss, and Gabriel Byrne plays his right hand man, and kind of his get things done man. And man, God rest his soul, the rival Italian up and coming mob boss is played by John Polito,
Hmm.
and he is awesome in the role. He is so stinking good. Okay, that's enough about that for right now.
Ban- Banter section concluded. We are moving on to the comic book.
I don't put the chapter breaks in there because I'm not that sophisticated for the audio, but I guess this would be where that would
Yep.
go. Mark shuts up about his things that he loves and gets into the comic book thing that he loves.
Let's do it. Let's roll.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got two really outstanding issues here in issues 3 and 4. Issue 3 is the Booster Gold issue, and issue 4 is the Ted Cord Blue Beetle issue, and both of them are highlights in this series that is itself a
I was going to
highlight.
say, I know we spent a lot of time last time getting into the world, right? Building the world of kind of what this was about and the setup of the whole murder mystery itself. But you're right; these two chapters really do a lot in pushing the story forward, and some great characters get introduced as the suspect list grows, right? Of kind of who could be the person who is after Lex Luthor and is running into Chance. And you're right, we meet not only the booster, but also kind of meeting right here at the top, the Green Lantern, which is a really great character in this whole story.
Well, he's an important character in the story.
It's funny what happens to him throughout the story, right? He's an awful character, but it's funny how
Fair enough.
Chance talks about him.
He's a great unlikable
Exactly
character
right.
throughout this story. In the quickest recap I can give, Christopher Chance, the human target, had agreed to do a job for Lex Luthor where he was going to stand in and, in disguise as Lex Luthor, take a bullet for the man. What he didn't realize was that there was another attempt on Lex Luthor's life that very same morning. Somebody had poisoned his coffee. And of course, instead of Lex Luthor being in the office to drink that coffee, it was Christopher Chance, our protagonist, who drank that coffee down. He learned from Dr. Midnight there were special properties about the poison that he had ingested, and he has 12 days to live. That's our ticking clock. We've got 12 issues. We've got 12 suspects in the Justice League International of a very specific era. And we brought in the character Ice, who was on that JLI team and is now going to be really the critical relationship for Christopher Chance as he goes about trying to solve this crime of who killed him while he is still living. So you're right, Chad. Those first two issues, we introduced the world, we introduced the essential relationship with Ice. We figured out a little bit about who Christopher Chance is, and in that very end of issue 2, we also learned that even though Chance is falling hard for Ice, he also doesn't trust her. And in his mind, he is maybe his prime suspect for having committed this murder.
Yeah,
So now with issue 3, we get to just jump right into let's go through the suspects one at a time. And, let's let the storytellers walk us through our thinking about could any individual character have been and what's the likelihood or the unlikelihood.
Yeah, this one starts the same way the other ones did with our calendar, kind of there with now a few drops of blood on it from the day before. We've got our main character sleeping in his bed, dreaming kind of the night he had with Ice the day before, but someone else is in the room, right? He kind of gets startled and wakes up and is told to hey, Chance, get up. And we meet on the next page. The Green Lantern is
Yes.
sitting there in the bed. Somehow he got into his hotel room and is waiting to have a conversation. It's so great.
Yeah, what a way to wake up. He's having this lovely dream about Ice, or maybe it's one of those, he's half asleep, half awake, and he's thinking about how smitten he is with Ice. And then he's rudely awakened to not just Green Lantern, but the worst Green Lantern, Guy Gardner,
That's right.
who is sitting on his bed and telling him, back off and step away from. Chad, I want to call this out. Guy refers to Ice as my girl. And of course, we also know that they're broken up. They're not in a dating relationship anymore. Guy just can't let go. But throughout the book, if there weren't enough reasons to dislike Guy Gardner already, his constant referring to Ice as my girl or baby,
Yeah.
which just feels so gross. It's the worst way you can talk about your female companion. Well, maybe not the worst, but casually the worst way you can talk about your female companion to show that you don't respect
That's
them.
right. Yeah, he's very territorial when it comes to Ice, and she will push back as we get into the issue. She doesn't really like it, appreciate it either. The artwork here too, Mark. You always point out this thing. We talked about this last episode some about the window shades, right? This one has a really great kind of the
Yes.
green and yellow window shades that is kind of depicting Guy Gardner in the middle of the night as he's waking up our main character, and it's just another noir, like obvious stunt, with the beautiful artwork on it.
Something that you called out in issue 1 as well was how creative it was, the way that Greg Smallwood worked in the credits for the issue into the artwork on the panel. And there it was on the last page of the issue where it had like the title of the issue in the headboard. Here, it's funny, like the focus point image, this big splash page where Christopher Chance is waking up and finding Guy Gardner sitting on the foot of his bed is really all on the bottom third of the page. And the rest of the page above it is the blue background wall with the yellow light that is shining in through those window slats. And the credits for this issue, the human target and the creators and everything, are done in that blue and yellow and mixed in with the slats. So good of a design.
Truly.
But I got to tell you, Chad, you're actually, we're not known for just flying through the material here on the graphic novel Apostle. And man, maybe I let you take the wheel a little too much because you got ahead here. We got to talk about the cover for issue 3.
Okay. All
This
right. Okay. All right.
so we've got this fantastic pink background cover with a giant face of Booster Gold in his superhero costume, holding up a big half bagel with Christopher Chance in the hole of the bagel trying to ward off being eaten. But the reason I wanted to call this cover out, aside from just how cool it looks, is there's not a specific movie poster that came to mind. To me, it has the feel of an Alfred Hitchcock movie poster.
Mm,
Like if you can think about in North by
yep.
Northwest, the main character like hanging off of Mount Rushmore, kind of get a similar feel here too, and how like the artwork is sort of, I feel like homaging those Alfred Hitchcock movie
Yeah,
posters.
kind of a King Kong almost, like, with the big guy about to eat this regular person. North by Northwest is a good shout. He
Yeah,
probably plays that same kind of character, right? That same old time Hollywood suit and jacket debonair guy.
yeah, for sure. Okay, well, let's go back to Guy Gardner here in the bedroom. So Guy Gardner has a bone to pick with Christopher Chance. He is going to spend the next couple of pages telling Chance how he needs to step down and step away because Ice belongs with Gardner and nobody else. And it's kind of funny that I can understand that this is a guy who's intensely jealous, but he must also know that the guy who he sees as a romantic rival has, at this point, 10 days left to live. I don't know that he's using his energy in the best way here.
And similarly, he knows that the target doesn't really have any superpowers, right? I mean, he's coming in with a show of force, and knowing that there's nothing this guy can really do to him. And we're going to find that out real quickly. Chance is going to even like grab under his pillow the gun that he stows there, and is going to pull it out, knowing that when he shoots it, Guy Gardner just going to block it. But even in kind of the subtext of what Chance is saying to himself is that he's just trying to move it along, right? just trying. Let's
Right.
get to the meat of this thing, right? I'm not here for the banter. You just woke me up. We're not gonna talk a long time. I'm gonna take a shot at you. If you're gonna beat me up, let's get to it. So he does.
Let's get to the part where we
That's right.
fight.
He
Yep.
shoots at him. Gardner blocks it with one of his little, lantern magical spheres. And then later, Chance will also take a swing at him, a punch at him, and Gardner will block that easily. And that's when he just thumps him.
And this is what I was speaking of earlier when I said I wanted to refer back to the Glass Key and Miller's Crossing. And really, this is a noir trope as well, which is your detective who is going to be sarcastic and wisecracking throughout
Mm,
also occasionally has to get beaten within an inch of his life. I mean, it's just part of the story. It always is. And here, Guy Gardner, of course, he's got the power of the Green Lantern ring, and so anything that he can imagine, he can form into a physical shape with that ring. And so he forms, like 5 extra fists that are all just beating down Christopher Chance until he goes out unconscious.
right.
And then once he starts coming to, Guy Gardner is gone. We don't know where he's taken off to, but Chance has got some black eyes and probably a pretty good headache. And Ice is there in his room, and she is waking him up and getting ready to get them started on their big meeting that they've got scheduled for the day.
Yeah, they're gonna go and interview some of the suspects, and he's got someone he wants to talk to, and they get in the car. He's ready to go. She even kind of offers that she would go by herself if Chance wants to stay behind, and no, he's in for it. He can handle this. So they get into his ride and notice right away. I mean, they don't even get around the block before they notice that Guy Gardner is back in a souped up Green Lantern car. What car is that even? I don't even know. I'm not even a car guy. I don't even know what that looks like, but it's definitely like a sports car. It's a Green
Man,
Lantern sports car.
Yeah, something like that. Chad, I'm surprised I can tell you what kind of car I drive.
Fair.
This is
Okay.
not
We're
my
similar
area.
company here then.
But yeah, Guy Gardner is going to follow them around and try and interfere. There's something that happens in this scene where they're stopped at the
Yeah.
traffic light. In fact, Chad, you want to talk us through that because we're gonna call back to this scene, or at least to the narrative that goes on with this scene at the end of this issue.
So this is such a funny scene. Like, if you picture like Chance and Ice are in this convertible at a red stoplight, and next alongside them comes Guy Gardner in this this souped up supercar, and Guy Gardner is a talker. So I mean they are bantering back and forth out the windows at this red light. I can imagine Guy Gardner's like revving his engine. Right, there's a challenge here that he's kind of coming because he wants his girl, and then Chance is in the car with his girl, and Chance pulls off this beautiful little stunt where he kind of he acts as if he's going into the intersection, like as if the light turned green, knowing that Guy Gardner isn't paying any attention and that he's just going to be following his lead. And so as he kind of hits the gas a little bit and then immediately brakes, Guy Gardner takes off into the intersection and gets hit by a huge semi truck. It's beautiful.
It is. It's fantastic, and it's a good way for them to break free of Guy Gardner. But in the narrative that we are reading, so Chance's thoughts as he's telling us this story, he's explaining to us as well that remember Christopher Chance is a master of disguise, and he's explaining to us that the key to a good disguise is not your mark seeing the mask. It's that they don't see the face that's behind the
Mm,
mask. And he uses this as an example where, we naturally, and we all do this. You're sitting at a traffic light and the vehicle in front of you starts to let up off their brakes and you just assume it's time for you to go, even though it might not be. That light might still be red. And Guy Gardner falls for that right away.
yep. So for the time being, Guy Gardner's out of the picture, and we don't know what really happened to him. The Chance just drives through the intersection as if nothing happened at all. And the next we see them, they're at
Right.
I don't know what that is, like a little shopping mall thing for our next scene.
Yeah, little like strip
It's so
mall,
great.
little strip mall where we are going to meet. And I am so glad we get to introduce some listeners who might not be familiar with the character of Booster Gold because this character is a gem.
Never heard of Booster Gold before. This was the first time to be introduced to him. He is a bigger than life character. He is in his super suit. It's blue and yellow with a big star on the chest. He's got like a little I don't know, like a little I don't know how to explain it. Like if you play Destiny on video games, it's almost like the little ghost figure who's like hovers around him and talks with him or for him and gives clues and things. This thing is so funny too. Like this adds a lot of the comedic relief in the whole scene of Booster Gold, just making fun of how dumb Booster is.
Oh, it's wonderful. And, this helps you understand the character a little deeper too. Booster is not like a superhero of our age or anything like that. He actually is from the future. And in the future, where he's not necessarily a successful guy or anyone of any significance, but they've developed a lot of cool technology that we don't have now. And so in the future, Guy Gardner steals a bunch of this technology, including some time travel device, and uses it to go back into time to our era. And well, with that technology that he has, he can be a superhero here. He has things that can make him able to fly. He's got this little, robot flying machine named Skeets
Yep.
that hovers
Yep.
around his head and talks to him all the time. And it's just kind of hilarious. Like being basically a con man is how he gets to be a superhero in our age. He does still sort of have a heart of gold. And Ice definitely is one who sees that in him. She sees the good in a lot of people, certainly in Booster
So
Gold.
Booster's got this like venture, yeah. The newest venture that Booster is doing, and why the cover of this is so great is that Booster is starting out as an entrepreneur, opening his own bagel shop. This small little shop in the middle of this nothing strip mall, right next to a nail salon. They're doing a ribbon cutting for it today, and so Chance and Ice happen upon they park in a parking lot and come up to this thing where like 8 other people are surrounding, waiting to enter into this Booster's Bagels, which is opening today. It's classic.
Right. He didn't exactly draw in the big crowds for the grand opening of Booster's Bagels. And to also like give you a sense of what a doofus Booster Gold really is. And Skeet is such a fun,
Yeah.
sarcastic little partner hanging over his shoulder all the time. When Booster gets ready to cut the ribbon, he raises up his wrist where he's got a laser. And Skeets is like, please use
Use
scissors.
scissors.
And, and Booster's like, no way, man, I've got a
You're
laser.
gonna break something.
Skeet's like, you're going to break something. And of course, he shoots through the ribbon with the laser and then blows out the window behind it in his own brand new bagel
Yeah.
shop. Although, Booster, although, is a little bit, he has some self-recognition too. And he says, but listen, to be fair, if you had given me scissors, it would have turned out the same way.
Skeet says, sad but true. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So we'll see this again, what happens next when Booster Gold, Ice, and Christopher Chance sit down to have their meeting that Ice has arranged for them in the mostly empty bagel shop that has just opened for the first time. The way this interview begins is what I was trying to get at. You're going to see again in the next issue, which is, Chance has got 10 days left to live at this point. He is just going straight to it. He's like, did you try to kill Lex
Right.
Luthor 3 days ago or 2 days ago, whatever? And, of course, Booster denies it and instead mostly wants to talk about his
Yeah,
bagels.
well, and I thought this was interesting, especially since we're doing these two issues here with these two characters, because really the interrogation goes much the same, where Chance is going right at it, just asking, "Did you kill Lex Luthor?" Just ask the question, and both of them. Our next character that we're going to meet is legitimately a really smart person, right? And he is legitimately going to take Chance through this, mind game of what you would have to take into account for to deduce whether or not I did or didn't, or whether I'm telling you the truth or not. We'll get there. Booster does that in a couple lines here, acting as if he's a smart guy, acting as if like he's could figure him out, knowing that Chance is a man of disguise and can I trust this kind of thing. When really we all just know he's just an idiot, like he's a bumbling buffoon.
Right, right. By the way, I can't let this pass by. At one point, Booster Gold announces the slogan for Booster's Bagels, which is, if evil's near, never fear, just get a
Yeah,
schmear.
right.
So, this is who we're dealing with here. But we do learn something very
For
interesting
sure.
that makes it a possibility that Booster Gold could be our
Yeah, so
killer.
one of the little details we get right here is that Booster, what he's trying to do to make his bagels good or different, stand out, is that he's using time travel to go to different places in time to get ingredients. So whether it's poppy seeds from an ancient civilization or onions from China, whatever it is, right? He's going to all the different places and getting the best of the best to make his bagel stand out. And this is a really big deal, or plays a big part when Chance starts kind of asking him about certain aspects, in particular the water that they use to boil the bagels.
That's exactly right. So, folks will hopefully remember from when we covered issues 1 and 2 that one of the things that Christopher Chance learned from Dr. Midnight about this unique poison that was in his system was that contained some out of date molecules, which was, we commented last time on that being a really weird way
Hmm.
to, have a chemical signature of whatever this poison contained. And so Booster wants to know, okay, so you went to ancient Babylon to get, some of your wheat or whatever, and you went to ancient Sumer. Where and when did you get your water? And Booster Gold mirrors at this
Kind of
point.
dodges,
He
yep.
says, No, no, no. That is the key. What you boil your bagel in is where it all comes down." And he says there are only 3 people who know
Yep.
the secret ingredient here. And that's me, Skeets, the little robot that's flying around, and then his silent partner, the identity of which he will not
It's
divulge.
and it's exactly right. It's exactly right, which is going to be a major deal. So now we know, we're after who is this silent partner, and he's not giving us that information. I do before we want to move on, Mark. One of my favorite parts of this whole interaction is when Booster is, talking up his bagel and what makes it so great, and he says, "Oh, you like them? Every bagel is toasted in house. No pre-toasting at Booster's Bagels." And Skeet, the little robot, says, "Booster again. That's not a selling point. Pre-toasting isn't a thing." It's like you're talking up this whole thing, but really pre-toasting, no one does that. You can let go of that. That's not a selling point. It's great. Classic.
Yeah, that's not quite your fresh, never frozen.
Yeah, right. No
Oh
one does
man.
that. I thought that was really great.
Well, when Chance and Ice walk out of the bagel shop, they're talking about the quality of the bagel they just ate. I think Ice makes the comment like, "Ugh, maybe he
Maybe
did
he did
pre-toast it."
pre-toast it. So good.
Oh man. Well, they go outside to go to their car, and
Mm.
Chad, they don't find things quite the way they left them.
No, what we get is Chance's car is a wreck. I mean, it is completely torn apart and standing on the wreckage, which, by the way, the car is on green cinder blocks, by the way. So it's really great. Guy Gardner is back, and he obviously survived the crash and is waiting to have a conversation with Chance and Ice, and is real smug as he kind of leans up against this wrecked car.
That he is completely disassembled. And you know what's funny? Like Chance is so cool about it too. Where at some point he explains like, I know I can't fight this guy and win. And also, you know what? I wrecked his car, he wrecks my car. Maybe it's fair.
Sure. Yeah. Just accepts it.
Not the outrage I think you would normally
Well,
expect.
and
Yep.
also, and what actually does happen, Chance probably suspects he's in pretty good hands now that Ice is here with him, because he's got someone at least that can match up to Gardner, and boy does she, right? So she takes
Yeah,
issue
that's
right
right.
away with Gardner being there, and "I'm not your girl" kind of thing, the quit claiming me as your girl. We broke up, and she lets him have it.
Yeah, she does. So she unleashes some of her ice powers, but Chance is his meta commentary that we're listening to is saying, yeah, of course, Guy uses the power of the Green Lantern ring to put up a force field that protects him from the ice. But he also comments like, Ice knows he's going to do this. She knows that she is not going to hurt him here, and she probably doesn't really want to. She's making a point.
Yep. So they have a little throwdown. There's a little tussle, and the next we see, Ice and Chance are back in the reassembled car driving down the road,
Yeah.
and we're heading back to Ice's place, where Ice is going to lay out some breadcrumbs to Chance that if he would like to come in, have a nightcap or something, then that would be great. And he kind of puts it off, right? He ever the gentleman.
Yeah, he resists
Yep.
it, but you can tell it's not easy for
Right.
him. We are increasing the intensity of the romance here in this issue, but we're really going to turn up the dial on that in issue 4. There are some there's some storytelling that particularly Greg Smallwood does with the art that really just nails home like these two have not just like find each other attractive, they have fallen hard for one another. But there's one more little, maybe breadcrumb is a good word, to lead us toward our next
Mm,
issue that I want us to talk about. And that is while Chance and Ice are, somewhere in this process of meeting with Guy Gardner and driving back to the house and all that, Ice reveals, yeah, it's no big deal that Booster Gold won't tell us who his silent partner is. His best friend is Ted Cord,
mm.
who happens to also be the Blue Beetle and is also a billionaire. So he is, just like Lex Luthor, just like Bruce Wayne, he's one of these, captains of industry and has all the money in the world and also happens to be a superhero or supervillain, I guess, in the case of Lex Luthor. And so he's going to be our next suspect that we're going to want to look into. Well, you mentioned that Chance does decline to go in with Ice for the evening. He goes back to his own room at his like motel or whatever that he's staying in, and he lays down in his own bed. And of course, he's just trying to have himself a whiskey and go to sleep. And the door gets kicked in, and in comes Guy Gardner again. This guy just won't quit.
Yep, he starts throwing some language out. There's lots of little characters, some of the words that he says that get bleeped out, and he's ready to throw down fight. Right, this is the last straw. Ice is not here to protect you, so he brings out the green chains that he even kind of like wraps around Chance's neck, choking him out. until the action pauses and a new character kind of like floats in down. And this is I'm not even know a lot about the Green Lantern stuff, but this is like the original Green Lantern or another Green Lantern, right? Hal, the one that we're more commonly known from the like Green Lantern movies, not the most recent Superman movie. Is that right?
That's right. So this is Hal Jordan, who is another one of the Green Lanterns, a beloved Green Lantern. And if you watched that Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie that a lot of people, bag on, actually, I don't know, it wasn't a great movie, but I thought it was awfully fun. That was Hal
Right.
Jordan, who was playing the Green Lantern in that movie. That was Ryan Reynolds' character. And we get an explanation here. Ants has learned that Guy Gardner, for all the power of the Green Lantern, has one thing that he seems to be afraid of. And my knowledge of DC history just isn't deep enough to know this background. But Christopher Chance is just going to tell us that Hal Jordan is the one person that Guy Gardner is afraid of. And so we see Hal Jordan floating down. He's flown in and he's floating down, and he confronts Guy Gardner and basically tells him, like, you're grounded. He tells him, give me your Green Lantern ring.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it away from you for a period of time because you have shown that you can't be trusted to
Yeah, he
use it.
says like Chance reached out to him and told him that he was kind of usurping this authority or whatever, and he's going to take his ring away and since he can't be trusted with it. So he does. I mean, without really balking at all. Like the guy takes off his ring, gives it to this guy, and right away Chance gets up, and as soon as he doesn't have that superpower, just decks Guy Gardner across the cheek.
Yeah.
It's classic good.
Yep.
And with him,
Lays him out, and in a panel, we see him flat on his
yeah,
back.
he is knocked out cold. He is not conscious. And then on the next panel, you have one of those Mission Impossible like face wraps, right? Where someone is not really Hal Jordan. This is our friend Luigi, who is the sidekick of Chance, who owns the pizza parlor downstairs, who had a mask on the whole time. It was Hal Jordan, even one of those little voice things around his neck to impersonate him. This is another evidence of the human target being the master of disguise who has set this up all along and now has gotten his ring away of Guy Gardner.
Yep, that's right. And, the fact that we see Luigi in the visage of Hal Jordan fly in as well, we learned that Chance had borrowed a Legion ring from Booster Gold, which must have been something he brought back from the future, I guess, to use that ability to fly in. And we return to that explanation that Christopher Chance had given us earlier in the issue, where he explains that falling for a disguise isn't about seeing the mask. It's about not seeing the face behind the mask.
Right.
What a cool way to wrap up the
Great
issue.
callback.
And then the last thing as well is that Luigi, wants to know, hey, can I keep this Green Lantern ring? And he's like, well, Chance is like, well, yeah, we've got to return the Legion ring back to Booster Gold, or he'll hurt himself without it. But yeah, hang on to that Green Lantern ring. I don't care.
It's so good. And that's the end of issue 3.
And we move into issue 4. Dad, when you were a kid, were you a fan of that 1966 Adam West Batman television series?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that TV show I remember watching all the time. The Joker, the Penguin, the classic characters with all the because that felt like that set up like the bam, the big like markers of like a fist fight, right? That they would have all these like comic blam blam, the sound effects of all the hits.
Yeah, it did. They would put, on the screen in a big graphic, as good as they could do for 1966. Bam,
Kapow!
pow, whenever Batman, punched somebody. And I ask about that, of course, because we're looking at the cover of issue number 4 of The Human Target, where we've got Christopher Chance, we've got the Blue Beetle in his really ridiculous Ted Cord Blue Beetle costume, and then we've got in big cartoony letters The Human Target Book 4, and then tang, fuck, all of those big sound effects all over the
He's got
background
some really good ones too.
around
Like
that, which is just a fun,
Fatang!
just a fun opening.
Really great.
Right? Yeah, they're not your standard
Yeah, they're
ones.
good.
So we're going to start this issue by going for a meeting that, again, Ice has set up, this time with Ted Cord, and we're going to go up to his penthouse on the top of the skyscraper executive office on the building for Cord Industries, where Ted Cord is going to welcome Christopher Chance and Ice. And Chance is, again, Not going to waste any time. What's great too is we see he's got like these puffy black eyes from his fight with Guy Gardner in the last issue, and he's going to just cut straight to the chase. Did you try to kill Lex Luthor 3 days ago?
And Cord's like deflection, unlike Boosters, which was, bumbling around. Cord, gives this whole kind of thing of like, whatever I would tell you, right? What is it? What's going to make you believe me? Because if I did it, then I would have a good excuse. I'd have an alibi. I would have all these things ready to go. There's really no thing I would tell you that would make you believe that I didn't do it. But he goes into this huge kind of monologue of like he's proving he's smart, right? He's obviously kind of showboating a little bit, just how smart he is.
Well, he's doing two things. He's proving he's smart, but he's also revealing like he's the kind of guy that once you've well, frankly, he's kind of like me, where once you've put the quarter in, you could go in the other room and I'm going to keep going with the conversation. And, he goes through this really tortured logic. Like, I'm going to tell you that I didn't do it. But of course, anyone who in my position would tell you that I didn't do it because that's a self-interested thing to do. So what could be my motivation? And he goes on and on and on. And I'll tell you what this really reminded me. Like, I read through a couple of pages of this and I'm like, you know what this strikes me as? The Sicilian from The Princess Bride.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Did I put the iocane powder in the drink in front of me, or did I put it in the drink in front of you? It's almost like he's just filibustering at some point.
Right.
Well, in the middle of this meeting that we're having, Ted Cord's executive assistant buzzes in on the speakerphone and says, "Ted, I'm sorry to interrupt your meeting here, but there's a bank robbery going on in Utah, and they need the Blue Beetle there to go take care of it." And so, while still just prattling away about the reasons why he might or might not have tried to kill Lex Luthor and what would that mean from an ethical point of view and, whatever other thoughts he has on it, he says, "Okay, guys, we can't just stay here, but why don't you ride with me in his spaceship, which is known as the Beetle, or his aircraft, I guess, which is known as the Beetle, and is in the shape of a giant blue beetle. And you can continue to question me along the way, and we can carry on this meeting."
This was also a character I wasn't just super familiar with. I think there have been maybe a movie or two that I just never saw, that have the Blue Beetle in it. But it just strikes me as being like this generic knockoff of Batman, right? That we have a billionaire playboy who has this huge enterprise, a big building downtown. When he needs to, he just goes into his little secret place where his jet is waiting for it to take him to where the crime is kind of going. And that would be understandable if it not only was it in the same like comic book world of DC, like that they knocked out themselves, but even within like the same superhero story, like Batman's in this comic book, they're repeating. I guess that they make him more the detective kind of guy, and this guy more of the techie science, type of person. But the difference is pretty thin on like the storyline of kind of where these guys come from.
It is pretty thin, and in the world of DC Comics, Ted Kord is not our present Blue Beetle. There's a character named Jaime Reyes who has a different origin and a different legend, but still looks to Ted Kord as a mentor of sorts. And so in the Blue Beetle movie that DC put out a couple of years ago, which is really very good, Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, is the main character of that movie. Ted Kord appears and plays a small role, but they say, not your granddaddy's Blue Beetle. Ted Kord kind of is your granddaddy's Blue Beetle.
Well, I was even looking up. I saw something that there was another one before that too. I guess there's 3 versions of this, right? Besides the Jaime and the Ted Kord, there was this Dan Garrett guy who was the original Blue Beetle, who I think his storyline was something like he either digested some kind of vitamin or got bit by a scarab or something like that, right? And was injected with this poison that became the Blue Beetle. Whereas Ted Kord was just super smart, right? And just could be able to come up with his own stuff science-wise. Science guy stuff.
Science guy stuff. That's right. Well, once we get inside the Beetle, it's not as luxurious inside as you might think a billionaire's aircraft is going to be. And in fact, for passengers that are going to be riding along with the Blue Beetle, there is just one little bench seat, and it's maybe smaller than a love seat even. It's kind of snug for 2 people. And that is where Christopher Chance and Ice are going to have to sit. And I made some allusion to this earlier in our conversation, but they're going to take a bunch of trips over the course of this day that Chance and Ice spend with Blue Beetle. And so they're getting off and on the airship, the Beetle. And to see the different way that Ice and Chance interact at different phases of the day is really a way to mark the progression
Mm.
and the intensity of their affection for one another. And I think it's really, really well done in terms of storytelling to see that. And so when we first sit down on this bench seat, they have to sit very close together because of the size of the seat, and Chance sort of puts his arm around the back of the seat, and he's not like holding on to Ice's shoulder, but he's got his arm around her all the same. And you can see Ice sort of looks at his arm, and then she kind of turns her head back and lays her head on his shoulder a little bit. And so there's some affection. Now we're going to see a little later on. At one point, they start to hold hands a little bit while they're in this position. At another point, Ice is even going to put her hand on Chance's leg. And so, as the day progresses, you can see they've moved to a new phase in their relationship. Well, we arrive in Utah and Ice suits up in her superhero costume. And of course, Ted Cord is in his crazy blue,
Mm.
outdated superhero costume with these weird yellow goggles and like these basically underpants over his, blue spandex. And they stop the bank robbery that's going on, and they do it with ease. And once they're done, Ice walks back over to Christopher Chance, and I loved this little moment. Chance is just kind of standing there by the aircraft, and Ice walks back and kind of comments how he didn't even try and help. And Chance is like, you guys had this. Of course, why would I try to help? And then he turns and coughs a little bit, and Ice comments on that. And when she does, Chance responds and he says, I'm sorry. Sometimes when I look at you, how beautiful you are, I can't breathe. And this catches Ice off guard. I mean, they're already heavy flirting with one another, but when he says this, like her head goes to a different place. And in fact, Ted Cord starts talking with her, and she is looking away from him, watching Chance as he's getting on the aircraft, and she's just kind of saying, like, "Yeah, fine, whatever. We'll go to the next place where we've got to have an adventure with you." But she's not paying attention. Her mind is into this relationship.
Throughout this whole day, right, what's going to end up happening is that the Cord is getting a call from his secretary with one thing after another in different parts of the country that need a superhero's touch. And so while he's kind of saying that he would, bring them back or get them to get them home, it's never convenient. And so they're just going to ride it out and stay passengers of the day, which is easy for Ice because Ice and Cord are kind of rekindling this friendship. They've been superheroes together, kind of nostalgic, bringing back some memories from the good old days when they were fighting villains together. And Chance is just kind of this passenger along for the ride, just kind of watching as things go. But you notice that during the fight scenes, that it keeps saying something about Chance noticing something, that there's something he keeps like noticing throughout the whole thing, that they're fighting a bear or all these bank robbers or these aliens, and all along Chance is commenting that something tugs at his mind, right? Something seems not right, and he can't let it go.
Yeah, he does. And at first I read that maybe as a little bit of jealousy. And it's a funny thing. It's one of these relationships that can't last very long, 'cause this guy's going to die in 9 days now. But there's something wonderful about the start of a relationship. And I can remember some times in life where I, started a flirtation with a girl, and I knew it was like I was about to go off to college, or I was about to leave college, or whatever. And it was like, this can't go anywhere, but at the same time, it gives you those butterflies in your
Right.
stomach. And I first read Chance's observations that something is not right as him being a little bit jealous of the natural, easy relationship that Ice has with Ted
Yeah,
Cord. But ultimately, he's going to reveal that that's not it at all. That's not what he was not
that's right.
realizing, or excuse me, that's not what he was observing.
Not too long after this, we kind of get what that ends up being, and it's that he's noticing that Ice is pulling her punches, or that she's at least not trying really hard. This is very easy. Each one of these little villains or adventures that they're on in crime fighting, Cord is going all out in fighting each one of these things, and Ice is just pulling her punches a little bit. She's holding back.
Well, and it's almost like she's considering Ted Cord's feelings in that she's not going to just absolutely upstage him from the beginning.
Right.
She's going to make it look like a team effort that was required. But it wasn't. Chance realizes this is a powerful, powerful woman. Well, after so many adventures over the course of the day, we find ourselves in Boston at the end of the night. And I guess there's not really time. I don't know. Maybe you had to stop somewhere and gas up the airship, the Beetle. But whatever it was, they're going to stay at this hotel for the evening that Ted Cord incidentally owns there in Boston. And first thing in the morning, they're going to fly back to wherever they started and go back to Ted's office, and everybody will go home. Well, they've all got their business taken care of at the front desk. And Christopher Chance asks Ted if he wants to go into the bar and have a drink. And Chance says, yeah, actually, it's been a long day. That could be really nice. And Ice excuses herself. She said, no, guys, I'm beat. I'm going to go up to bed. Y'all have a good night. And this is where Chance puts in the detective work that he has been waiting all day to do.
Yep, Cord has kind of owned the conversation all day with all of his posturing and being kind of the almost the attorney, right? Just kind of giving all the excuses for why he wouldn't be the thing. But with a couple of drinks in him, the guy starts getting a loose tongue and keeps asking the bartender for another round, even though the bartender's kind of said that he'd done last call 3 or 4 times, right? But Chance is even keeled and smooth as everything, while his Cord starts kind of giving him a little bit more. So as Chance asks for some of the new information, who is this silent partner? That's what we're wanting to know, right? Who is this other person? He's assuming it's him. How much didn't you loan him the money? Maybe even for the bagel shop. And we learned from Cord that he didn't get the money from him, that he didn't invest with Booster. Booster came to him, asked him if he would. He said no. And so he went to somebody else to get the money.
He did. And we also learn who that was. So in his drunken stupor, where we're getting less and less banter at this point from Ted Cord, and we're just getting the pure information. And he explains, well, the silent partner has to be Martian Manhunter, because right after I turned Booster down for this loan, John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, came to me and asked for a loan in almost the exact same amount. And, Chance is like, well, why did you loan it to him? And he says, you don't say no to the Martian Manhunter.
Right.
He's too good of a guy. But Jones had come to him with, like kind of a half explanation about needing to help a friend, and he was very vague. And so what Ted Cord has done for us now is given us our next suspect that we're going to have to investigate.
So with that information, Chance has what he needs. He's going to head back up to his room. He notices that the lock is broken. His card won't work. And when he ends up trying to get into his room, he notices the door is cracked. It's open. And who would be in there but the lovely Ice, pouring a tall glass of whiskey and a highball for Chance, even though he's just been in the bar for a couple hours.
Well, and drinking out of his flask since he woke up that morning.
That's right.
But hey, everything that Christopher Chance really wants, glass of whiskey, evening with Ice, he has right here in his hotel room as we conclude issue 4 of The Human Target. Chad, this is so
It's so good. It's a great book. I like going through it the way that we're doing too, because it makes me, even having read it several months ago, like going back through it now, I'm catching so many things and just the subtle nuances of the story and how it sets up each issue as learning the suspects too. We're in a murder mystery, not just a comic book.
Yeah. And, I have found time and time again in doing this podcast, the close readings that I end up doing to make my notes for the episodes that we do as our book clubs, I always end up like unearthing new layers and new levels to the story that I didn't get the first time. And, it's funny. You mentioned this being a murder mystery as well as a comic. I mean, this is really more a murder mystery than it is a
Fair.
comic. It's like the superhero aspects of this book are really just what add some of the some of the flavor, some of the sprinkling on top. But at core, it's just a straight up hard boiled murder mystery.
It's a good time.
And it's so
It's a
well
good time.
told. Chad, there are times where I read a comic, and look, I read so many comics. I read good comics, I read bad comics, I read comics I'm okay with, I read comics I love. But every once in a while I read one and I put it down and I go, this isn't fair to everybody else who is writing or doing, art in this space. And this is one of those books where I read the story and I get to the end of an issue and I go, doggone it, this isn't fair to everybody else in the industry.
From the art to the story, right? The dialogue, the characters,
whole thing.
the book of characters that they're having to draw from the DC universe, as well as just how the look and feel of the book. It's top to bottom really good.
100%. And Chad, I am looking forward to doing 4 to 5 more episodes on this series with you. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun throughout. I thank our listeners for being here with us through this. I really thought this one was going to come in a little shorter than our last one because there was so much world building that we had to do. But Chad, I think the listeners can count on us. We're going to take them over that hour mark every time.
If anyone's still here, then I guess I apologize for that, but we'll do better next time.
Man, if you're going to be one of my disciples here, you're going to have to be a little better than Doubting Thomas, because always talking about like if anybody's still listening. Come on, now the people love
happy to be proven wrong. And it's fun, and all that. It's still just fun to be with you. It's fun either way. I'm having a kick out of it no matter what, so it doesn't matter.
Well, equal, and I'm building a religion.
It's true.
All right, all of our listeners, thank you so much for being with us. Believe it or not, I'm going to bring Chad back, and we'll go in next time to issues 5 and 6. And until then, keep reading those comics.